Mike McDaniel said on Tuesday that it's not quite as simple as doing something different amidst the Dolphins' offensive struggles. Are you buying or selling? We're exploring here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, NFL Draft Lead over the 33rd team. You can find all of our shows here on the Locked On Network on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network, even in the midst of 1-3. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Mike McDaniel met with the media yesterday and gave a lot of updates, injury updates on players. A couple players coming back off of reserve lists and opening their practice windows starting today as the Dolphins get ready for Week 5. A trip to Foxborough to play the Patriots, who are also 1-3, have their own issues. We're going to do crossover Thursday with Mike DeBata, Locked On Patriots, tomorrow on the show. So this roller coaster is going to keep on chugging along. And we are in the midst of the big drop. At the start of the roller coaster is what it feels like. And how long the drop continues is to be determined. Now, there's been some assertion from NFL insiders like Adam Schefter during the kind of build up to Week 4, suggesting that Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins starting quarterback, may be in a position. He's not experiencing any symptoms of the concussion that he suffered in Week 2 against Buffalo, may be in a position to be back in Week 8 against Arizona when he's eligible to come off injured reserve. We'll see. It seems like everybody has something different about this situation because of the ambiguous nature of head injuries. And the broadcast certainly spent a lot of time on Monday night talking about Tua Tagovailoa, and I frankly am over that element of this situation. The Dolphins as a team are in the situation that they're in, and the answers that are available to you right now don't include Tua Tagovailoa. And quite frankly, without Tua Tagovailoa, it is, you kind of felt it coming. And a lot of you guys in the preseason asked me, like, hey, what's the deal with the backup quarterback situation? And I invoked the Tom Moore quote. We're expletive if the starting quarterback goes down. That being back when Tom Moore was one of the Indianapolis Colts staff was with Peyton Manning. You're seeing that for the Dolphins. But at the same time, it does feel like when you watch the game plan and how they're calling a game and what they're trying to do and how they're approaching offensive football, it is still the same general. I think the phrase I used on WQAM with Joe Rose this morning was they put a different shade of lipstick on the same pig, right? And it's been a couple of really ugly offensive performances. The Dolphins didn't go over 100 yards of offense until the fourth quarter in Week 4 against the Tennessee Titans. And a lot of general lack of respect from opposing offenses for what you're doing. And I frankly think with the speed that you have at receiver, you're feeding into it with how you're calling plays. I have lost count of the times that the Dolphins have run this balloon escort, and it hit for them last year against Carolina, and they didn't run it the rest of the season. And then they seem to take it this offseason and say, we're going to make this one of the core staples of what we do offensively, at least through the first month of the season. They must call it 10 times a game. They might have thrown it 3 times on the season. But you're taking a tight end or some other skill player, and whether you're shifting or motioning, you're running them out into the flat, and then you're running a swing route behind it to have a lead blocker out in front of it. And it's been with Tua, without Tua, and you're never throwing it. And what you're effectively doing is you're taking 2 eligibles to run one route that you don't throw. And teams are still respecting the vertical speed of what you have offensively. They're still playing deep, and they'll take some calculated risk and try and take the backside safety and run them down and rob those middle of the field routes. And that's where you saw Tyreek Hill have an opportunity to get behind the coverage. And unfortunately, Tyler Huntley's eyes against Tennessee had started to the other side of the progression, and he ends up taking one of the few times they actually threw the balloon swing, and it was in traffic and crowded because they were trying to rob the front side concept, and Tyreek Hill goes streaking down the sideline. Brian Baldinger had spotlighted that on his film breakdown of Dolphins Titans on social media. Mike McDaniel's assessment of what is going on, I think, is further affirmation that they really aren't changing what they're doing, which is frustrating in a number of different layers that we're going to get into and kind of work through. But the quote from Mike McDaniel yesterday, he was asked about what needs to be corrected in the offense while Tua Tagovailoa is out. And Mike McDaniel suggested that the answers are in-house. He talked about there being a disconnect between the way that the team prepares during the week and then the way that the team goes out and plays. He alluded to there being some very concrete, and this is a direct quote, concrete, direct conversations that need to be had. I think it's fair for me to want to keep those in-house. Across the board, from coaching to execution of plays, not playing winning football, 11 people not executing their jobs in a tied-together fashion. But the part that really stood out to me was after he said there's a disconnect between the preparation and the execution. We feel like going into a game, we're not getting the results through execution. So I think it's not as easy as do something different, but you have to do some things different because clearly there's a gap between the preparation and the execution. We spent all offseason talking about how this is a suit tailored, is the analogy, was the offense is a suit tailored to the strengths and skills of your starting quarterback. And there's not a lot of players that are like him. He is a unique player is your starting quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. And there's a whole other conversation to be had about that foundation of who you are as a team and the injury history that he has. And I understood the risk when I was a proponent of the team doing the contract, but I also didn't think Tua was going to try to turn into Earl Campbell and run over DeMar Hamlin in week 2. Down 21 points in week 2 of football season after protecting himself the entirety of the previous season. But that's a conversation for another day. It is. So you tailored everything around his strengths as a player, and now that player has been removed from the equation for the indefinite future. And if you don't think it's as easy as do something different, then I think you're giving yourself, as the play caller and the scheme, in my opinion, you're giving the scheme too much credit for having all of the answers in which you need. Because you could prep it and practice all you want. They're not getting it. They are not getting it. We had one of the illegal shifts. The Dolphins had 4 players moving at the same time. Skill players. And some of that on the quarterback to make sure that everybody's lined up before we initiate the pre-snap sequence. Yes, some of that responsibility falls on the quarterback. But who is giving the quarterback the answer to the test? The play caller with the scheme and the game plan. And there are easy things that you can do differently to do something different, like take the shift motion out. You don't have to do it every play. If Tyreek Hill's going to get up and they're going to get lined up, and Alec Ingold on the other side of the formation is still finicking with getting down into his stance. And Tyreek's going to start outside, and he's going to walk in towards the core, and then he's going to motion back out to take the snap from the same spot that he was in before with a running start. Either just start him inside and run him out with the motion without the shift, or take the whole thing out because he's Tyreek Hill, and he's got speed. It shouldn't be this. I do think there are things that you can do to remove pre-snap player. Joe Shad had the breakdown. Let me get this. I want to get the numbers right here. Through 4 weeks, Joe Shad The pre-snap penalties for the Dolphins are egregious. Probably doesn't even describe it. 7 false starts, 6 illegal formations, 5 illegal shifts, and 1 illegal motion. And that is all. You can talk about disconnect between preparation and execution. That is unnecessary player error for a quarterback who's been here for 2 weeks, or a quarterback in Skylar Thompson, who may have been here 3 years, and that's why he was the player who was prioritized to keep into the scheme. But you're not even tapping into the lexicon of past year stuff because you just keep running balloon motion, and you have Jalen Waddle on the perimeter running, selling a route, and then running a fake bubble to be the lead for the running back running a swing. It's Jalen Waddle. Run him on a route, please. We got a lot more coming. Make sure you stick with us here on Locked On Dolphins as we work through. Is it as easy or not as easy as the Dolphins just trying and doing something different? PrizePicks is the number one place to play daily fantasy sports. Did you know you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks? PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. You could join over 10 million users and sign up today. If you think Justin Jefferson's going to go over 83.5 yards next week, you can pick Justin Jefferson as one of your players for your combinations, and you can mix and match. You can go across sports. You can go all kinds of different stat productions within the same sport. They give you all of the tools that you need. And best of all, you can play against the house, not you against those 10 million other users when you are looking to win your money. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly. And when you play a $5 lineup, that is LOCKEDONNFL is the code to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Processing where I want to go from here. I have a lot of thoughts. And I have the last couple of weeks with the Dolphins and their changes and looking at matchups, kind of made some assumptions about what this could look like for Miami. And the Dolphins did invoke some quarterback run game. They ran a what looked to be a quarterback draw. They ran QB power on a handful of occasions. But it wasn't the centerpiece of what the game plan was, because the centerpiece of the game plan looked eerily similar to what it looked the previous week against Seattle, and that looked eerily similar to what it looked the previous week against Buffalo. And I have a really hard time with reconciling all of that, in addition to the pre-snap margin for error that's being put on the players, to say it's not as simple as just doing things differently. I would like to believe, and I know, true drop back passing and empty concepts and asking your tackles to take authentic, or your offensive line to take authentic, like true pass sets, that's not really within the ideology of what the offense wants to be. But you have a quarterback who's dramatically different in what he is physically capable of than the quarterback that you are traditionally working with. Tyler Huntley is significantly more athletic. He can buy more time. And on the missed deep shot that he took to Tyreek Hill, that was a snap in which the snap to release duration exceeded over 3 seconds. And I know everybody talks about 2.25 and snap decisions and get the ball out fast. But at some point, don't you have to, if you're trying to run the offense the way that it's been designed to be run, with somebody who it was not designed to be run for, don't you have to lean into that player a little bit? Don't we have to call some more quarterback runs? Don't we have to make that a little bit more of a central piece of what we're doing? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be the case, because I made those assumptions last week that, well, with Tyler Huntley, they get the quarterback run game involved. They didn't get the quarterback run game involved. They, on a handful of occasions, made some spots with it, and it felt like there was more errors with that than, as far as an execution standpoint, than what there were with the other stuff. I mean, they ran the the quarterback run down on the goal line for Tyler Huntley run touchdown, they'll have two guys unblocked on the front side of the play. And I understand to some degree, if you're going to run a mesh point, you're anticipating a player potentially reading off of a player, but they left two unblocked to the front. They had the fourth down that they gave the ball to Devon Achane. I can't tell if that was designed to be a true read by the quarterback or not. Huntley gave the ball, and as soon as he gave the ball, he's pointing to the gap, and Achane goes outside. I don't know the responsibility of that play, but I know there was a hole in the C gap with a guard pulling around a wrap, and nobody ran up north and south. We went to the side and ran that play into a corner blitz from the Titans. Jonnu Smith standing out there on the sideline all by his lonesome because his corner that was covering him on the perimeter walked all the way down at the snap and ran in, and you had Alec Ingold trying to block two guys on the edge. So from an execution standpoint, it's not been great either. So do you either lean into that and try and get the execution of the stuff that's designed that you can design for the strengths of the player that you have to work, or do you keep trying to push buttons and finesse and massage the system as it's been designed and intended to get better results? I don't think if your option and your solution here is number two, I don't think the offense is going to get much better. And that to me is where it's not as easy as do something different. I don't think that's an acceptable answer to the issue that you're dealing with, because I watch teams with significantly less talent and bad quarterbacks that aren't as athletic as Tyler Huntley find easy ways to get their guys the ball on a weekly basis. You can't tell me Malik Neighbors, as good as Malik Neighbors is for the New York Giants, Daniel Jones, is he a good starting quarterback for the New York Giants? Is their offensive line world beaters? Do they have other players? Do they have a Jalen Waddle on the roster opposite Malik Neighbors? So then how's Malik Neighbors blowing up on a weekly basis? How's Malik Willis coming in and they're able to run the ball? It's a similar ideology. They got Zach Tom, great player. They got Elkton Jenkins, great player. The rest of that line's not world beaters. They let John Runyon walk in free agency, but they added Josh Jacobs. You added Jalen Wright. Are their tight ends? Is Tucker Kraft that much better of a blocker than Julian Hill? Is Malik Willis, who couldn't cut it in Tennessee and wasn't going to make the roster, is he that much better than Tyler Huntley with NFL experience? Maybe he is. But I look at the examples across the league, and it's like, man, there are teams that have less talent that find ways to allow their players to be involved in touching the football much easier than what the Dolphins are right now. And simultaneously, there's teams that have been dealt similar hands who have more easily changed gears and changed directions on who they are as football teams. And now you're on the edge of some players are going to show you who they are right now. And I thought some of this came through a little bit if you go back and you rewatch with a microscope and you're watching and you're asking yourself authentically, who's playing hard, who's not playing hard. I'll let you go back and make those determinations for yourself. But what I would say is this. If guys are now not going to play hard, if you're going to be a pro player, pro relationship type of team culture, and you're going to let players let their foot off the gas or not play hard or not get on top of loose balls or not sell something on the backside or not run that love of the game route for the love of the game route that's not necessarily in the progression to try to open something up for somebody else, or if you're not going to throw a block for your quarterback when he gets on the edge and scrambles for a first down and you're coming across the middle of the field and the corner falls off somebody else and you have a chance to maybe throw a block and spring the guy for a big play and you're watching it happen, maybe you should sit down for a little bit. Do I think they have the do I think the coaches on this team would do that? I don't know. I know they didn't do it this past week. And that's where I think now you're worried about the integrity of the well and the water in the well. Because if that kind of thing starts to creep up on you on a weekly basis and it's not addressed, That's where these problems can really accelerate. And now you're asking Tua Tagovailoa, assuming he comes back whenever he comes back, to be a savior that turns the wine back into water and to fix all the problems on the offense. And that's why I said on the last show, on the postgame show, I don't think Tua's return is going to fix all of the things that are being exposed on the underbelly of this team right now. If adversity, I forgot who it was, but somebody on Monday night tweeted me, and they said, the Dolphins are drowning in the Mariana Trench of opportunity as a play off of adversity is opportunity. And I thought that was about the funniest tweet I read on the night in the midst of a very unfun game. I got a good laugh out of that. So if that was you, I do thank you for that. Now, we did get some injury updates, including Jalen Phillips. We're going to touch on some of that here next on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. The current line for Dolphins Patriots on Sunday. The Dolphins 1.5-point underdogs on the road in New England. And I would probably not pick them to cover 1.5 points, getting 1.5 points. That's how bad the state of affairs is right now. But you can make that decision for yourself. Over on FanDuel, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Mike McDaniel disclosed on Tuesday Jalen Phillips will not be available for the team on Sunday, which is a big-time bummer. He kind of took a shot to the leg, came back in the game, went to leave his feet, had to reach down. They put something on his knee. Mike McDaniel alluded to it being a short week, said he was in good spirits, but they don't have any concrete information. They're still working to provide clarity on if it's a multiple week thing or what. But that's a bummer for Jalen Phillips, who just cannot catch a break. That's a player the Dolphins will have the 5th-year option on next year, but you were hoping this year was going to be the get right, get healthy year, have the breakout year, give you a lot of confidence in the long-term forecast for Jalen. And he has all the talent in the world. He's an outstanding human being. He's the kind of guy you want in your locker room. He plays hard every down he touches the field. Some of that stuff we just talked about at the end of segment 2, you'll never hear me put Jalen Phillips' name on that. Love him as a player. But the break here is a super unfortunate one for a guy who worked as hard as he did to come back. And I hope this is a short-term thing for Jalen Phillips, but we are waiting to hear more details on that in the coming days as well. The Dolphins opening the practice window for Odell Beckham and Cam Smith. So you may potentially be seeing a new wide receiver 3, mercifully. So we don't have, I don't know. I'd like to have your tight ends out blocking on your perimeter screens and not Braxton Berrios regardless, or not have Devon Achane as the lead block on your crack toss. But that's neither here nor there. It will be another skill player for the Dolphins to hopefully try to space the field a little bit. Like go empty, run quick game. Pretend it's a 2-minute offense situation. Just once, just see what happens. Maybe Odell can help pull them into being encouraged to do that. I don't know. We shall see. But Odell Beckham poised to start practicing. Cam Smith, a little bit more competition. And, man, I would get him in there. And I would get his feet wet. Kendall Fuller sounds like he's progressing through concussion protocol. Mike McDaniel suggested that both he and Teron Armstead will be progressing through and kind of increasing their intensity after missing this past game in concussion protocol. But Cam Smith, can he be in a position to compete for nickel? Would he be in position to play outside and have Kendall Fuller move around or Jalen Ramsey move around a little bit more? I think that could maybe help you out a little bit as well, as I keep sitting here asking for more of Javon Holland in the slot, and we're not getting it. But I can't throw too much shade at the defensive side of the football. They gave up one possession that went for longer than 29 yards against Tennessee. and it went for 70 yards and a touchdown. But every other possession that the Titans had went for less than 30 yards. 245 yards of offense. What are you going to do defensively? 24 points came on drives in which the Titans went less than 27 yards. And you set the offense up with short fields at times in the past 2 weeks, and they've done nothing with it. Nothing. Special teams is a whole different story with the penalties on special teams and the onside punt and all that stuff. But that's also a story for another day. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Hang in there. We will keep the therapy sessions going. And as long as we need therapy sessions. But that's going to do it for us here today on the show. Appreciate you guys checking it out. Keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. You find us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We're out of here. I'll talk to you all again soon.